After 70, many people begin to feel like they should be worried all the time, worried about their health, their memory, their appearance, or whether they're becoming a burden. And if that sounds familiar, I want you to know this: you're not alone. We live in a world that tells us we must always be fixing, improving, or doing more. But what if this stage of life isn't about carrying more weight, but finally learning to let it go? What if the real wisdom of aging lies not in having all the answers, but in releasing the worries that never served us in the first place? Today, we're going to talk about 8 things you can finally stop worrying about after 70. Not because they're unimportant, but because your peace of mind is more valuable. These are the quiet truths that can help you breathe easier, sleep deeper, and wake up feeling just a little bit lighter. And if even one of these helps you feel less alone, then this video has done its job. So stay with me. Let's walk through this together. The first worry you can gently release after 70 is this quiet thought that perhaps you're no longer valuable. It doesn't always show up as a loud fear. Sometimes it's just a subtle ache in the background. When no one asks for your advice anymore, when your days grow quieter, when your name isn't mentioned in big decisions like it used to be, you may start to wonder, have I already played my part? And if that thought has crossed your mind, please know, you are not alone. This is a feeling many people share in their later years, often in silence. But here's what I want you to remember, now more than ever. Your value has never been tied to how busy you are, how productive you can be, or how many people rely on you. Your value lives in your presence, in the wisdom you carry, in the calm steadiness you offer, and in the gentle way you make others feel seen and safe just by being who you are. I once met a man named Richard, 74 years old. He told me he used to feel invisible after he retired. The phone stopped ringing, no more meetings, no more purpose, or so he thought. Until one day, his young granddaughter climbed onto his lap and asked him to tell the story of how he met Grandma. She hung on to every word like it was a treasure. That moment opened his eyes. He wasn't forgotten. He was a living archive of love, a bridge between generations, a teacher without needing a classroom. And so are you. If lately you've been questioning whether you still matter, let me say this clearly: you do. Deeply, quietly, and completely. You don't need to be needed in the same way to still be meaningful. Your life, your presence, your being, they are more than enough. And once we begin to remember that we still matter, not because of what we do, but because of who we are, it becomes easier to let go of another lingering worry: how we look. Aging has a way of changing our reflection in quiet, gradual ways. The skin softens, the lines deepen, hair turns silver, and gravity leaves its gentle fingerprints behind. And somewhere along the way, we may begin to feel like we're fading, as if the world values our youth more than our presence. But let me remind you of something you already know deep down. Your face is not something to fix. It's something to honor. Every crease beside your eyes is a laugh you've shared. Every wrinkle across your forehead is a moment you thought deeply, worried lovingly, cared deeply. Your body has carried you through storms, heartbreak, joy, and years of showing up for others. And now it carries wisdom. I once met a woman named Eliza, 78 years old, who told me she used to hide from cameras. She hated seeing how her face had changed. But one day, her great-granddaughter looked at her, tilted her head, and said, "Grandma, you look like a storybook." That sentence changed something in her. She realized that her face wasn't fading. It was blooming into something richer, deeper, and more beautiful than youth could ever be. So if you've been avoiding mirrors, or tugging at your clothes, or worrying about how others see you, take a breath. What you see as less than might be exactly what someone else sees as home. You are not a before and after photo. You are a living portrait of a life fully lived. And that is something no wrinkle cream in the world can replace. And as we start to feel more at home in our own skin, another worry begins to loosen its grip, that quiet fear of falling behind in a world that just won't slow down. Technology races forward, trends change overnight, grandkids speak in a language of emojis and apps, and suddenly, you might find yourself wondering, am I being left behind? Let me reassure you, just because you don't know how to use every new device doesn't mean you're out of touch. Just because you don't care for social media or smartwatches or whatever the latest update is, doesn't mean you're irrelevant. In fact, in a world that's always rushing, your ability to slow down, to sit still, to listen, to notice the little things is more needed than ever. I remember talking to an 82-year-old man named Carl. His grandson was trying to explain how to use a streaming app, and after 10 minutes, Carl just smiled and said, "You know what? I'd rather hear the story from you than watch it on a screen." That moment, it turned into a weekly storytelling ritual, no apps required. The truth is, you bring something that no technology can replace. Presence, heart, wisdom that's been earned, not Googled. So don't let the fast pace of the world trick you into thinking you've been left behind. You're not here to keep up. You're here to offer something deeper, something steady, and the people who love you, whether they know it yet or not, need that more than ever. And perhaps one of the deepest worries that settles quietly into the hearts of many after 70 is the fear of becoming a burden. It's not something we like to say out loud, but it's there. In the hesitation before asking for help, in the guilt after forgetting something important, in the quiet sigh when our bodies don't move as quickly as they used to. We don't want to be too much for the people we love. We don't want to slow them down. We don't want to feel like we're in the way. But here's something I hope you'll hear with your whole heart. Your existence is not a weight. Your presence is not a problem. Needing support does not make you less worthy of love. You have spent your life showing up for others, giving, carrying, helping, holding things together. Allowing someone to help you now doesn't erase that legacy, it completes it. I remember a woman named Della, 79 years old, who used to apologize every time her daughter brought her groceries. "I hate to be a bother," she'd say. One day, her daughter looked her in the eye and said, "Mom, you're not a bother. You're my blessing." That simple sentence melted something in Della. She realized that being loved in return was not weakness. It was a continuation of love she had poured out for decades. So if you've been shrinking yourself, trying not to ask, trying not to need, please stop. The people who truly love you don't see a burden. They see someone they're grateful to still have. They see someone worth showing up for, and you are, always. And once you begin to understand that you are not a burden, something else begins to shift too. That constant voice in your head asking, "What will they think of me?" It's a question that follows many of us from our youth, through our careers, our parenting, our public lives. But here's the thing, if there's any stage of life where you should feel completely free to be yourself, it's now. You've earned it. You've walked through fire, you've made hard choices, you've said yes when it hurt and no when it mattered. At this point in your life, you don't owe anyone perfection. You owe yourself peace. I once heard a woman in her 80s say, "I used to dress to impress. Now I dress to exhale." That simple sentence stayed with me. She no longer lived for approval, she lived for comfort, for truth, for joy. And what a gift that is. You don't need to explain why you forget things sometimes, or why you move slower, or why you'd rather stay in than go out. You get to choose what matters now. And anyone who truly sees you, anyone who truly loves you, I will never ask you to be smaller or quieter or anything other than exactly who you are. So if you've been editing yourself, second-guessing your choices, or shrinking to avoid judgment, please stop. At this stage in life, your only job is to be deeply, unapologetically yourself. Because that's the version of you the world needs most. And that's the version of you that finally gets to breathe. And as you start living more freely, not for approval, not for expectation, another weight begins to surface quietly, the regrets. The memories of things you wish had gone differently, the words you didn't say, the mistakes you can't undo, the relationships that never quite healed. These thoughts have a way of creeping in during the quiet hours, making you wonder, did I do enough? Was I a good enough parent? A good enough partner? Did I waste too much time? If that's been sitting heavy on your chest, let me offer you something soft to rest on. You did the best you could with what you knew at the time you knew it. That's not an excuse, it's a deep human truth. You were learning as you went, you loved imperfectly, You tried. You showed up, even when it was messy. And that matters more than you realize. I once sat with a man named James, 81 years old, who told me he still regretted not saying sorry to his brother before he passed. It haunted him for years. One day he wrote a letter, not to send, but just to let his heart speak. And as he read it aloud, he cried, then exhaled. "I think," he said, "that was the first time I truly forgave myself." Sometimes we carry things longer than we need to, simply because we never gave ourselves permission to set them down. So let this be that moment for you. Regret is a sign that you've grown, that your heart still wants to do right, but you don't have to keep punishing yourself to prove that you care. What's behind you is behind you. What matters now is how gently you move forward, with more compassion for others and for yourself. And while we're learning to let go of regrets, there's another fear that tends to grow louder with each passing year. The worry that we're losing control of our minds or our bodies. Maybe you've noticed your hands shake just a little. Maybe your memory skips a beat, or your balance isn't what it used to be. These small changes can feel like big warnings, and suddenly the fear creeps in. What if I'm not myself anymore? But here's the truth no one says enough. Change doesn't mean failure. Slowing down doesn't mean you're broken. Aging is not the opposite of living, it's a deeper way of living. You may not move as fast, but you move with more care. You may forget small things, but you remember the things that truly matter. I once met a woman named Ellen, 76, who told me she felt scared every time she forgot where she left her glasses. "It makes me feel like I'm disappearing," she said. But then her grandson told her with all the sincerity in the world, "Grandma, I forget where my phone is 5 times a day. You're doing fine." That moment made her laugh, but it also reminded her that forgetfulness is human, not a flaw. And weakness doesn't make you less worthy. You are still you, even on the days you feel a little slower, a little foggier, a little unsure. If anything, those are the days when you deserve the most tenderness. So instead of fearing the changes in your body or your mind, try to meet them with curiosity, with kindness. Strength now looks different. It's in the courage to ask for help, in the grace you offer yourself, in the small steps you take each day to keep moving. And remember, who you are is not defined by what you can do. It's defined by how much heart you still carry while doing it. And finally, perhaps the quietest and most powerful worry of all, the question that lingers in the back of your mind even when everything else feels fine: how much time do I really have left? It's a thought that can creep in during the stillness of night or catch you off guard while watching your grandchildren play. You feel your body change, you sense the years passing, and suddenly there's this pressure to hurry, to fix everything, to make peace, to do more before it's too late. But here's something I hope lands gently on your heart. The value of your life is not measured by how much time you have left, but by how deeply you live the time you have now. The truth is, none of us know the number of days ahead, but what you do have, this moment, this breath, this morning light coming through the window, it is enough. I once met a man named Harold, 84 years old. He used to count how many Christmases he might have left, until one day he stopped. He told me, "I realized I'd rather pour my heart into the Christmas I do have than worry about the ones I might not." That shift changed his entire way of living. He became more present, more joyful, more peaceful. And so can you. You don't need to race against the clock. You don't need to fear what hasn't come yet. You only need to show up fully for what's here: the laughter, the sunlight, the simple pleasure of sitting quietly with someone who understands you. That is where life is, not in how long it lasts, but in how deeply you feel it while it's happening. So now that we've walked through these 8 quiet worries, the ones that sit heavy in the hearts of so many people after 70, I hope you feel a little lighter, a little more seen, a little more free. Because the truth is, this stage of life was never meant to be lived under the weight of fear. It was meant to be lived with softness, with wisdom, and with a kind of strength that only comes after everything you've been through. If even one of these messages spoke to you today, let it sink in. Let it stay with you when the house is quiet. Let it remind you that you are not alone, and you are certainly not less than. You are, in every sense of the word, becoming more aware, more compassionate, more yourself than ever before. And that is a beautiful thing. I'd love to hear from you. Is there one worry you're ready to let go of after watching this? Leave me a comment below and share your thoughts. I read every single one, and your stories bring so much warmth and meaning to this community. And if you found value in this video, I hope you'll consider subscribing to Wise Old People. It helps us keep creating content that truly speaks to the heart, and it means we'll walk this path together, one peaceful step at a time. Thank you for being here and for being exactly who you are. I'll see you in the next video.